That'll do.
All right. Here we are again for another interesting episode, and this time we have 4 folks on here, and 2 of them are not country boys, but others, females. Do you both identify as females? You're very attractive females in my book, so I would say hopefully.
Thanks, Matt.
Definitely.
So we have not so mean Becca Jean, and we have our muse, otherwise known as Dr.StrangeDuck. If you don't know, they're on Instagram and have for some time been working together. And in fact, were the first folks to interview me and kind of get me kicked in the butt to do this here podcast myself. And so I'm very happy to introduce you, and thank you for coming on here today.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. We've worked through our technical difficulties. I had my own to begin the day, or you might see a little bit better of a picture here. I'm working on getting a super high definition camera so that you can see all of my bald spots correctly. But we got all our country and far out signals linked up, and here we are. So I'd kind of like to kick it off with asking you, Becca, since you've had some time to get in here and get used to us yahoos talking. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your lives that you and Amy here do, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish there?
Yeah, so the live streams, we were pretty consistent with them last year. We started them back up, but really the purpose of the live streams is education. There's a different topic every time. I mean, usually a specific person for a specific themed topic. And really in regards to mycology, administering, and a lot of it, I think, and Amy, you could speak more to this, is like kind of to relieve that stigma around psychedelics growing and administering, and really just kind of the safety around it as well. What do you think, Amy?
I agree. And also to break the stigma that being a mother, a wife, and also working and microdosing makes you lazy, makes you not doing your job properly. So I wanted to also live stream and show our faces and show that we're the face of magic mushrooms and microdosing. I mean, we're mothers. So that was another reason to do the live streams, really bring the women together. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I think that's kind of similar to why we started this podcast, actually, is I think folks have a different impression of who you might be on social media, and it's important to most of us to not betray the trust. And so it seems odd to be like, hey, okay, I'm this great, happy individual, and this is what happens in my life. It's better to kind of show, hey, well, we don't live this perfect life. This is what we do. We're just like everybody else that is here trying to heal, and very I don't know if inspirational is the right word, but it's something to bring us closer together and to understand one another more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And really, it's not just the moms. It was bringing it to the professional world too. Because I do have, and I've told you guys, I have a professional job. I am out there. Like, it's a little risky for me to go into space. In the sense of like, I could possibly lose, more than I'm willing to lose. But at the same time, I believe in microdosing so much. And what I've noticed is such a huge interest from colleagues and other professionals that they also are on board with psychedelics, even the conversation of. So that was the other route too, is like that this is the face of like, doing psychedelics. It's like, you can be professional, you can have like another life, you can be a mom, that it's not just people at, Deadheads and, music festivals and whatever. It's like it's real people.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. In a local city, actually, recently, there was the police announced an ordinance to kind of stop tracking, small amounts of mushrooms. And I was talking about it with one of my friends that's in the business world, and he was like, "That's probably because the people they're finding with it are mostly police." And
Mhm.
I,
Mhm.
to say what city. I'm not going to point any fingers or anything, but I was like, that makes a lot of sense. It is moving into the professional world, whether we recognize it or not. It's giving it a face is something I'm doing that,
Definitely. And it's been something that for many, many years is not on a standard drug test. So any of those folks that are in professional jobs, they've been able to use that stuff indiscriminately without ever having any issue getting caught. And, for good reason. At least in my opinion.
And that's where I come in. A lot of the education I run, first that I know of, educational microdosing booths, and I'm getting mostly professionals, that union workers, construction, military, really interested in microdosing right now. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So high stress
it's
environments.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know these days. I think pretty much any work or any job is probably pretty high stress with the way the
That's fair.
finances are. But
Well, sorry, Matt. I was thinking I was afraid to start showing my face and putting it out there, that I grow mushrooms, magic mushrooms, and that I am creating and making microdoses for people in my community. I just started putting it out there, afraid of how it would be received, and I was actually received really, really well. I've been welcomed into meeting spaces that I didn't think that I was going to be welcomed into. Sometimes I'm shocked. I did a workshop last week, and the woman whose space it was kind of like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I want to bring some education, to our community about microdosing and start sharing this, this beautiful medicine." And I was really tiptoeing around and expecting her to be like, "Hell no, I don't want that in my, this professional space." But she was like, "Absolutely, yes, bring this in." And it's been the same thing with like the people who are wanting the microdoses too. Like I keep expecting people that are the people that are showing up to not be the people that are showing up, because I'm having like doctors, nurses, teachers, moms, like, business owners, like in my community and stuff like that are coming to get microdoses on a regular basis. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is not what I had expected at all. Like, not even a little bit. So it's been really cool.
Good. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I don't see it so much on my end, but that is good to know, because I think we see a lot of those professionals as authority figures, and a lot of us don't like authority figures because we see this stuff as not being strictly legal.
I think the veterinarians are the ones that I notice the most first, because vets have a more open mind. And so with the microdosing, I actually sought out the vets to start with animals, and then kind of worked my way up into the human world when it came to microdosing. Started with a dog with epilepsy that was going to be put down, and started there to see what does microdosing actually do, and was able to monitor. So that's been incredible to get the professionals on our side like that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, and I don't think I've really seen much in that aspect. Did you have you find any other uses? Is it pain management and epilepsy, or is there more to it for animals?
For pain, especially with myself, I didn't take magic mushrooms or do microdosing for mental. I did it for physical pain, for chemotherapy. After chemotherapy, my body was just broken. And people were like, you need to come microdose. You need to rebuild your mind. Once you rebuild your mind, you can rebuild your body. And then I started noticing after surgery that it was blocking pain receptors. It had to have been. I didn't need pain medicine. And then I started bathing in it, extracting it, infusing my bath salts in it. And I started noticing like my muscle pain started going away. So there's a ton of uses for it in art as well. I found many ways to use magic mushrooms, especially.
Yeah, and
for
I think
pain.
that's one that a lot of people don't see is the topical. And I know myself, I just didn't think about it until you had started to tell me about the salts and the little ointments and whatnot. And I'm just really interested to try and test it out. Unfortunately, I myself don't have a bathtub in my trailer here, so I haven't been able to get the full body experience, but I'll have to go out to the local Motel 6 and try it out one of these days.
Ew.
Old people, get them a microdose.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to get my dad to start down that road. He's 72, so he's got a lot of the I don't know if you would call it dementia. It's not dementia. It's whatever the first stage of that is, memory loss. And I can't hardly even convince him to try lion's mane. So I'm still working on that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just convinced my grandmother to start on lion's mane.
Good.
Sorry,
and
go ahead.
she started.
Doing on the lion's mane?
Yeah. I make it myself. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Oh, how's your grandma doing on the lion's mane?
She's doing good. The first few days she said it like upset her stomach, but after she kept on taking it, she's incredibly positive effect.
That's why I was asking how she was doing, especially in elderly people. I realized in myself that I can't break down lion's mane, so it always has to be in an extraction for me to take it. I could never actually just eat it. I would always have to do something to help my body do half the process of breaking it down. Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Matt, you want to talk? Did you want to go around and talk about or have everyone share out what they do specifically, like their trade, like in the mycology realm?
Yeah. In fact, some of it may be news for me because I do see a lot of what you guys both put out, but I imagine there's much more to it, and I'd be interested to hear your take on what it is your myco business or your interaction with the community is. So, why don't we start with you, Becca, and you just tell us what you got going on.
Yeah. Well, because I was curious about what Andrew does. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, we can start with Andrew. He's not too bad about being on the spot.
I teach classes for foraging. So I teach people what plants and what mushrooms you can pick safely in the wild. The other main thing I do is there's 2 predominant cities that I work in as a pop-up chef. One of my recipes into a restaurant will make it, and then they'll get to keep the restaurant after I work there for the weekend. So one of the ones that I'm working on right now is I'm trying to perfect chanterelle cheesecake. So I work with a lot of food and then also teaching people how to forage as well. And it comes from a lot of Southern tradition as well. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of poke salad.
I've heard of it. I have no idea what it is.
Like a weed, and over time it becomes poisonous. But during the Depression, the South had to start picking this weed and parboiling it to make it edible because there was nothing to eat. So a lot of tradition like that over generations of learning how to do it. So that's pretty much what I do. Unfortunately, I can't work with
the ID King, right? You love identifying chaga and honey mushrooms, right?
Yeah, those are my favorite species for sure. Matt's messing with me. I get identification requests about 300 when honey mushroom season comes up, and they're I feel but yeah, I do enjoy doing IDs and stuff. There are some things that are still out of my league for sure, but I do enjoy doing it for the most part.
Yeah, I try and stump him every once in a while.
And you do, you manage to, because Oregon's crazy.
It is, yeah. So how about you, Becca? Why don't you go ahead and tell us all about what you got going on for yourself there?
Yeah, in the mycology world, I grow, and I basically focus on making overdoses for people in my community, and other medicines that actually Amy has helped me with recipes to create, but mostly microdosing is what I focus on. And then I do a microdosing consultation with people. I just started teaching a workshop. I'd like to continue doing that, like maybe do some sort of series, or maybe if I were to do like a group consultation, if I could like have a discounted rate for people, because I also want to make this really accessible. Unfortunately, I can't give it away because it is expensive. It's the time, like what Matt was saying, the time and the money going into it is expensive. But I do want to have options for people to be able to afford it. So I'm thinking about maybe doing like cohorts with people. And really what I focus on is safety, drug interactions, the law, and then kind of accountability. Like, if people are taking these, this is a mind altering substance, that this, to be respected. What I do professionally is I'm I'm a special education consultant for a school in Denver. And so I just work remotely. And then just got my bachelor's or master's in behavior analysis. How I'm going to combine those things together at some point, I have no clue, but I know that it's going to come together at some point.
All right. Oh, sounds like a good resume for running one of the, I don't know what you want to call them, the treatment facilities, So maybe if that's in your desires, that's in your cards for the future. Never know. Yeah, I've seen some pretty interesting things from you. In fact, one of the things that I was curious about with the microdoses is you seem to have additives that you put in with yours. Niacin was one that I saw. But I think the last video or reel I saw, you're kind of discussing when and why to add that. Do you care to go into that a little?
Yeah, that's a great question. So niacin, what that does is, so I mix a dose of niacin or psilocybin and lion's mane, and that's all equal parts. And the thing about niacin is that sometimes psilocybin can inflame the blood-brain barrier. And this is for older people that may have some brain inflammation, or people with traumatic brain injuries or anything like that. Whereas niacin and the lion's mane bind to the psilocybin and help get it across the blood-brain barrier without inflaming it, or at least that's what it's been. What the theory is so far. I have done a little bit of research on it. There's not a ton. I mean, obviously, you guys know, like, there's not a ton of research out there. Everything is like arbitrary and kind of preliminary. So, it's just going to have to take like over time studies to be able to prove this stuff. I did see that one. I did want to help people that are having, that are questioning, inflammation. And so that was really the purpose in doing it. I personally like it because I feel like the microdose, the psilocybin, actually hits me faster, and the flushing effect of the niacin almost makes it feel like it's just more, what is the word? It's like I can almost feel it like going into like the cells of my body. Oh my God, my superpower here.
Yeah, it's like it penetrates more into your cells somehow. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've not liked taking niacin as a supplement in the past. So when I think about it, I kind of think of that hot feeling, you know, and I think you kind of discussed that. But it does sound pretty interesting, and I have noticed the lion's mane thing myself. I thought, well, you know, we'll just make like this multi gummy deal, and tried that early on. And boy, you get a wake up call if you think you're getting a microdose, and you've ran it the same amount as you do when you add lion's mane. It's odd too, because it's not like this overwhelming, oh my gosh, I'm too stoned, like when you smoke pot. It's like this cerebral, I'm really smart, but I don't know what to do with this intelligence kind of feeling. Same, only
Are you
different.
ready for everyone who's about to hate me? Paul Stamets calls that stacking.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to stay away from that. I was trying to stay away from the word, but
Oh, and that's what I really did not
am I?
and I was like, I go with it. And I know a lot of people are kind of, you know, the Paul Stamets stack, like that's kind of a, you know, like that's not really a thing anymore. But however, there is some research that has been done about the niacin, like being, you know, helping with inflammation going over that blood-brain barrier. So I do stick with it just in case somebody is concerned. I personally, like, honestly, don't really think that it's necessary because psychedelics inherently are anti-inflammatory. But if somebody's concerned about it, then I do have that option.
Right.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Stamets can be right about certain things. Don't get me wrong. Like he's not my favorite guy in the universe, but I don't think that, you know, I don't think backing it's necessarily a negative thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's just I know what you mean. I've seen a lot of his content, and he's a very, very intelligent person. He just has confidence to rival that intelligence, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really like the video, the fantastic fungi, but I really would have liked it if they leaned into the science at all on how they got into that information, because it's a great concept, but again, it kind of plays into that same effect, you know, like, hey, I'm smart, just take my word for it, I'm telling you how it is. And like, it just doesn't play well with our generation. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna look it up and we're gonna try it and we're gonna see whether or not you're right. Or you know, we don't just go off of your word.
There's really not, like I said, I really have it. It's more like a peace of mind microdose. Like there are some benefits and health benefits to using niacin. There are benefits to using lion's mane. However, like I said, it's really just kind of like somebody's peace of mind of taking it. And if that's what someone wants, you know what, and if that makes them feel better, great. It does make the microdose feel like it hits you harder for sure. And niacin does get across that blood-brain barrier and does cause, reduce that inflammation. But yeah, I think 100%. Like, do I take those all the time? No, I don't feel like it's necessary. Like, not
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, hey, if it feels good when you take it, then that's probably the medicine for you. I've found that is the case a lot with these mushrooms. What works really well for somebody and gives them energy and allows them to get through the day may make you a couch potato, or it may make you just anxious to all get out.
Yeah.
So Matt, tell us what you do.
Oh, I try not to do too much these days. Yeah, I just sling my petri dishes and try and do some consulting every once in a while, and that's about it these days. Make a lot of videos. It feels like more than anything, I'm a video editor and a creator, as they say. But I don't go around telling people that. I'm a social media creator.
He's a public figure now.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Don't forget where you started.
I definitely will not.
And Amy.
Yeah. Don't forget us little people.
All right, I'll try my best. So, Miss Muse, How about you? I know we've got a fair amount of knowledge based off of what we got from your book, but why don't you tell us, what you do with the extracts, and more importantly, how you make all those goodies that you make?
Well, I started out just as a psychedelic chef, and I wanted to learn how to cultivate in order to drop the cost down because I was getting shitty mushrooms where I was. So I brought in a professional and paid him to teach me everything from scratch a year ago. And I had a theory that by extracting magic mushrooms and then infusing it into sugar, that the sugar would help people like me with low serotonin. The glucose would trip your dopamine, which would help, boost your serotonin. I know that serotonin helps you digest and metabolize sugar. So it kind of went into a circle. So I had a dream about it, and I was like to my mycology teacher, "Do you think this will work?" And he was like, "Fuck yeah, it'll work." So I did it. It worked, but I needed other people to verify me. So I went into the marijuana industry, into all their private events, and asked to run educational microdosing booths out of my own pocket. And so each time we went into these events, we're giving out like 10 grand worth of mushrooms and education. We had agar. We taught people how to do transfers. And that's how I earned my name in Washington. Then I started going into the topicals and bathing in it because I knew it was working for me. It was time to show other people that it would work for them. And decided to combine it all into a book to teach you how to make the edibles and the topicals. So it's called How the Muse Found Magic, and it's also an autobiography of how I was raised in a cult and how I found magic mushrooms. And so kind of just a full circle. So I cultivate, extract, infuse, and do everything on my own and run a top business on the side. And then I also consult and teach psychedelic chef classes.
Isn't that interesting how folks like you and others that have had trauma in their life end up in the field to help other people? It used to be kind of common thought that if you went through trauma, that you might cause trauma in the future, and I think that is one thing that definitely the psychedelic revolution is showing is not to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I felt really alone, especially before finding Instagram. I was like a really isolated PTA mom that like didn't even know how to get on Instagram, never taken a selfie. And a year ago, I found Becca and I found you, and then my world started changing. I was like, I'm not alone anymore, and my knowledge started building, my education started growing once I met you guys. And so my mind was stimulated, and then I just took off. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't
Yeah,
it
that's pretty awesome.
is the connections that we make with each other? Like, um, I know this is gonna sound silly, and you guys are gonna all roll your eyes. It's like the mycelium, right? It's like we're like little mushroom beacons, that kind of like send out a signal through the mycelium, or like through the through the universe. We all kind of find each other.
Through the social media network. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's just weird and like say synchronistic, how we all end up like kind of coming together, like what you were saying, Matt, about how we all met. And Andrew, I don't know you yet, but I'm sure we might get to be friends because that's happening. Like every person that I've met that I had a connection with over social media, I have continued to be friends with. And I have friends now all over the country that grow mushrooms. And I've never experienced that in any other activity or hobby that I've ever had.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You really could draw correlations between the internet and the mycelial network, as far as being comparable to what we're doing with one another and linking up. And heck, we even make that fantastic fungi thing legit, because we send each other what we need to survive, and
Yeah.
When those other folks in the network are down on their luck, we help them out, and they get back into the field, and they do it in return.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched
So
a K&F farm for marijuana, and I really introduced mycelium, and all of my babies that were struggling, I put a line of mycelium, just tea, and put it from my strongest mother to my weakest link, and watched what happened. And those weakest links outgrew all the mothers, and I actually had to stop because it was taking too much. And I watched it go through, and I was like, this is the most powerful thing I've ever seen. Every day I had my children watch with me, watch what happens. And when one of us is down, the other one rises up. That's how I see us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need everybody that's a part of our community to feel the same way, So I think as we kind of pointed out, folks like us find one another, and that's great. But there are a lot of folks that are in the community that don't necessarily think that way. We're working on that, right?
We're one at a time. One at a time. Coming above ground was amazing in the community, but in public, it's been a definitely different experience. Half is like putting you on a pedestal, and then the other half wants to stone you right where you're standing. And so it's been a very mix coming into showing. I don't know anybody else doing this in my state, and so there's nobody to ask. So but I was really surprised at how many people are still against it, and the prejudice against people that use it, grow it, and what they like you, but as soon as they find out what you do for a living, they don't want their children to play with you, and they don't want you to be around you. It's like they just
right. They want to
pretend.
microdose themselves and improve upon their own life, but screw you for wanting to be a professional about it.
Exactly. That's what I'm running into right now. It's like, wait a second, but you just got edibles for me. Like, what are you talking about? So, that's where it's kind of been really weird. It took a long time in the marijuana industry. I imagine we'll get there in like 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of keyed in on one of the big issues right now is that as a mother, you can catch a hell of a lot more flack than somebody else for saying the exact same thing. I've seen it where you're distraught from people talking shit.
You've seen me at my lowest, I think, and I've been threatened. CPS has been the number one threat. And my children are older, so I feel like I've been lucky in that sense. But there's still that still concerns me. I'm always really careful about what's at home. I stopped. Right now, I'm not even cultivating because I've got too much business going on the side. I don't have time to do that anymore right now. So I'm just kind of putting that on hold. But I kind of then turned my mind around and thought, if I were to get arrested, what a powerful message that would send to arrest somebody like me. Like, who's the real criminal? Like, you're gonna arrest like some PTA, like, stay-at-home mom for magic mushrooms when there's real criminals. So it would actually boost, the message faster if somebody like me. So I kind of think about it both ways. But yeah, I'm totally willing to put my freedom and everything at risk in order to get this message and education across. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is something that not everybody fully recognizes, I think. I think a lot of the folks that are in the myco community, at least like myself, we've been involved in one way, shape, or form with illegal substances our whole lives. And so it's not as large of a leap as, say, someone who's towed the line and, has a family to lose and a career to lose. I think there's a lot of layers, and it's really easy for somebody like me to come out and criticize someone like you, because I don't have the parallels unless I sit down and talk with you like we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we need more, I think, and especially when my husband goes and he speaks about magic mushrooms or he's with me at an event, He's treated differently than I am because I'm a mother, I'm a teacher. People trust immediately. When I walk into a room, they want to tell me their deepest, darkest secrets right out the gate. And so I think in order to break the stigma, we need a lot more women to stand up and start showing themselves and start educating. I'm not being sexist, but I don't think we can do this without more women. I think it's gonna be really slow if we don't bring more, because I'm speeding across Washington on my own. If I had 20 more women on my side, we would clear Washington and Oregon like that in the next year. So like we need more education, more help. Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, I think you're right in that it takes getting in with everyone, and I've seen a pretty big divide between the males and the females in the myco community in general, but also between females and males and males. There's very different groups, and there's folks, I think, like all of us here, that will actually concern ourselves with what the others want and try and understand, I think that linking up with you two and being able to sit down and talk with you on a long-term scale has really benefited me, because in the past I don't do that with women. I don't talk to them and actually say, well, what are you about, and how does your mind think, and how do you consider all of these things that we're doing? And it's been a pretty big eye opener. I mean, I know that people in general are different, but the divide between men and women and how we conceptualize things is very different.
I think I think that's a really interesting topic, about like kind of this polarity between the masculine and the feminine, because I feel like that's really what what psychedelics are doing is like, I feel like our culture, and I don't want to get too political, but I'm saying like we're under a kind of a more masculine patriarchal culture in this country. I feel like as we're waking up with psychedelics, we're waking up that divine feminine, and really that divine feminine in everybody. Like men that use psychedelics are so much more like balanced men, so much more like grounded, calmer, more in tune with like, their creativity and their flexibility, and kind of a more like nurturing side of them. And that's really what I've discovered as well, that it's like, I think people are more receptive to me because I'm a woman, but at the same time, like when men are taking psychedelics, they're also like connecting to and becoming more balanced, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it definitely opens your mind to truths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What were you saying there, Andrew? Sounded like it was pretty important.
I was agreeing, just kind of shaking my head. Yes, that it what's the proper term? And in men that typically microdose, there's far less toxic masculinity. I guess that's the proper way to put it. They're not as judgmental and kind of stuff like that. There's plenty of guys that are plenty masculine, but I do agree that they're not as like, you got to do it too. You got to build drywall and drink the beer. There
it is.
Right.
That's how with microdosing, I was microdosing and my husband wasn't. So I was still dealing with this like shut down, gruff, like I'm man, you woman type of, thing. And I was like, this is really going to hurt our relationship if we can't get on the same page. And as soon as he started microdosing, he started like listening. Like it felt like we could finally communicate, almost like he dropped his guard a little bit and his wall came down.
I would say that's the real ticket right there, because I don't know, there's actually a lot of reels going out right now that are showing trans men or women that have gone from female to male trying to fit into men's social structure. Well, men don't share shit. We don't talk about that stuff. We don't have support systems. We don't have people to talk to. If we have a problem, we suck it the fuck up and we keep working. And what mushrooms does is it allows you to drop your guard. And it's like a lot of other drugs. It gives you that familial feeling. Like you feel that anybody that's on that drug that you have a connection with, and so you're able to communicate with them. And I think that opens up the door for more of those things. But I also think that psychedelics work both ways. And so some people that are just so far gone with their egos, or so far gone with their confidence, or confidence in how the world works, that they take mushrooms, and it does not do that. It does the opposite. It reinforces their impression of the world to a concrete stance, and I have found that with folks specifically that are very successful with what they do and don't have a lot of folks telling them, hey, you need to slow your roll and get with everybody else and be on the same page, because they're just so far up there. Like there's no considering way down here where they started.
I totally agree with you. I feel like, going back to circling back to, that kind of, what psychedelics can do for men. I feel like what I see a lot of is like, this unfairness around women, toxic masculinity. But really what I've come to understand is like men need healing too. I love that you said like men don't have support. Like they don't have like safe place to like open up and be vulnerable. And I think that's what psychedelics, or at least what I've seen in my husband, is like psychedelics give men like this space to be able to process viscerally those emotions, that like maybe they need to, and that, or at least give them the opportunity to do that. And I'm saying that for myself because I was always like a really like a masculine type of woman, and it's helped me to connect with my feminine side, because I was always like, I got to be badass, I got to be the best, I'm everything, I'm independent, like don't fucking try to tell me what to do. Sorry to say the F word. I was educated, had my career, made my own money. And when I started doing psychedelics, I started crying a lot. And now I cry a lot. I'm so much more softer. I'm like, so much more with mothering my child, women, feminine friendships, like with Amy, and so much more like compassionate towards men and like where they're at. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, not that I'm a man, not that I understand it, but I'm empathetic towards it. I'm like, it's a lot of work to be really masculine and like tough all the time. Like it's so much work.
It's a pain in the ass.
You reminded me of a story, and hopefully I don't regret it. But I did have a moment like that where I shared that with one of my dude roommates. I was in a legal setting at the time, so I could actually take the mushrooms. But I took a pretty good dose, and I turned. Well, it got to the part where they're like, "There's no secret ingredient in the soup," and I just started bawling, like full on. I was like, "There is no secret ingredient. It's inside you all the time." And immediately, as soon as I'm bawling, and he's like, "Are you good, dude?" And I'm just like, "Soup." Soup. I couldn't even talk. But at the same time, he couldn't understand me, but he still reciprocated. He was like, "Yeah, buddy, soup. It's good. Fine." And it sounds incredibly goofy, but it was very formative in my life that I was just like, I made no sense, but he was there for me.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those you had to be there moments, but it's made so much sense in the time, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like
I tried that.
Meat, before mushrooms, like when Becca said she felt masculine, like, and she had to soften up. I felt the opposite. I felt like too feminine and like weak, like I couldn't do anything without a man. And then it changed my thought process, and I was like, holy shit, I can do everything on my own. This is amazing. So yeah, I didn't have the masculine experience.
Yeah. And in fact,
and I wonder, I'm talking over you and I don't care. I wonder then if maybe that's what psychedelics do. I'm just having like a thought bubble right now. Like, do they like get you, you know, like, do they meet you where you're at and like allow you to like heal the areas that you need to heal? You know, like Amy, they brought you into your masculine, whereas me, they like brought me into my feminine. You know, I wonder if that's what it does. Is like it just starts like finding some homeostasis inside of it all. I don't know. This is
Right.
maybe I'm onto something.
Well, I think
Yeah, that's
you
what
are.
I was
really
I think she's
it,
on.
it affects each person differently. Like I don't know how much I've touched with this with you two, but like what for me, I didn't have confidence. I had a lack of self-confidence. I had a very poor self-image, and I knew that I had to improve those things, but I didn't realize that I had to consciously focus on them. And so for quite a while, I just took mushrooms kind of aimlessly, you know, and I would treat it like any other party, you know, just to have fun and use it as a release, and thinking the release was the actual medicine. And eventually I got to where I was just like, all right, well, everybody else has these, you know, revealing highs that just show them things, you know. I want to try and do the same myself. And I focused on those same areas. And I kind of think that the psychedelics can be like a key. They open up what you have locked away. Most of us hide who we really are. Most of us hide what our real thoughts are for one reason or another, because we think other people will disapprove of them, because we disapprove of them morally, whatever it is, you know, whatever reason. And I definitely think some people, they won't let that lock ever open with it, whether they take the psychedelics or not. But for me, it definitely was an increase in ego, an increase in confidence, and an increase in understanding of who I was, admitting not only that I was more than I thought I was, but also that I was less. You know, for much of my life, you know, I've thought I hold myself to this moral standard and I need to adhere to it, you know, and I didn't realize why. I never had any real reason why. I just had this feeling inside that I had to do this. And that last trip really just kind of showed me that it's not what I wanted for myself. It's what I thought other people wanted of me. And the real revelation was that I didn't give a shit about 90% of the things I was concerning myself with. That was other people's concerns for me or about me, what the hell ever. And that was the thing that I had to unlock with psychedelics, with mushrooms specifically, was that push that shit aside, see the reality is that this is what I want, and this is how I have to achieve it. And it was, you know, for me, it was like it was a crystal clear path, and I need to re-up on that path. But
my head got too big on mushrooms. Like I got too much confidence and then had to be humbled again. So like I went up and then I had to fall and drop again, and then I had to rebuild again. So like it gave me so much confidence, and so much where I started to see other people looking at me, and started seeing other people wanted to hear me. And like, it kind of turned me a little bit like, oh, you know, look at me. And then I had to fall off that pedestal. And apologize to a lot of people, especially my spouse. And so like, for me, like, I think the ego, there wasn't that ego check for me. And I wish I had my community now, because Becca would have stepped in and been like, you have a problem, girl. Like somebody would have said something, and I was doing it all at microdosing on my own. And so like having somebody like kind of keep an eye on you while you're doing it is, I think, really helpful as well. Like letting somebody know what's going on, because I changed and people really noticed immediately and were like, who is this person?
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I would not have said anything. I would just let you, I would have just let you like, no, not in a mean way. Not in a mean way.
Never mind then. I'll pick somebody else. Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't think that, like, I mean, like learn in yourself. And I feel like your process is your process, my process is my process. And like, because we're all doing psychedelics, I think we do end up learning those lessons. Like, you don't need me, or like your egos
It would have taught me faster if I had somebody that, like, somebody would have been like, hey, maybe you should get off of live streams. Maybe you should turn your phone off and go get grounded. Maybe you should stop working. Like, maybe, you know what I mean? And I was just, but I don't know if I would have listened either.
I was gonna say, you weren't listening.
Like, I don't even know if I would have listened.
No.
Right.
And you did. You learned the lesson you needed to learn through all that. I mean, I've been the same way. You were there for me when I was like working a job that I freaking hated. And I was busy all the time in grad school and going to the gym every day. And I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And I was miserable. And then when I finally just like quit, I threw my hands. I mean, I did get through college, thank God. But I don't really believe God. I just said that. But when I finally quit and stopped with the rat race, and what Matt was saying, what everyone else like thought, or that I thought everyone else wanted me to be doing, or what society wanted me to be doing, it was like, then I could finally start to like find some peace with myself. But you're right, Amy. It's like, it's the ego in there that was it all of like, they need me to do this. I'm supposed to be doing this. If I don't, then who am I? And as I'm starting to let that stuff go, I told you guys before this recording, I'm like, man, there's sometimes where I wonder, why am I doing this? This is not what anyone else is doing in my community. This is not what anyone else is doing, who has has a normal job. I'm like, why do I keep persisting? But I've got to be true to myself of like, what other option do I have? I don't. This is it.
Well, and you got something in you telling you to do it, and like for me, for my entire life, I've had pretty good instinct, and I've ignored it for most of my life. And only again, since this, taking psychedelics, have I realized that instinct's spot on, and maybe that's all it is that something inside you says, hey, I need to do this to help people.
Mm-hmm. Or help myself. I get a lot out of it. I know, Amy, and I wonder if you're the same way, and same thing with Andrew. Like, I wonder, do you guys get your own therapy and your own healing through like sharing it with other people?
Definitely. Yeah. In fact, early on when I first started, I felt bad. People would come to me and, be like, man, you just helped me so much. You talked to me and helped me through this hard time, and you got me past these contams or whatever. It'd be just like, nah, man, you're helping me at the same time, because it allows us to open up and share things, because you already know the other person's distraught. You already know they're not going to criticize you for sharing your feelings. So I think it's a great example.
Matt, what was? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I'm right in the middle. People sharing their trauma with me right now is like causing triggers. So I've really had to like pull away from it. So like, I'm kind of in the, I really love helping people, but now people have like started to open up to me, and have opened up this whole new door that I didn't expect to happen, to where now they're going to share things that are probably going to make me feel very uncomfortable. And so I'm trying to learn how to deal with that right now.
It's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I've experienced.
What were you saying there, Andrew?
I was just saying I've experienced similar things as well, like people sharing things with me that didn't necessarily make me feel comfortable. And it's not negative to not want to deal either, because like therapists have to train for years and years and years to be able to cope with people talking about that. So expecting like a person who hasn't been trained to do that is a bit much. So don't hey, I need to remove myself. Always put your mental health forward in that situation.
I
Right.
appreciate that because I had a lot of heat on that one. It's like you shared it, like, why aren't you responding to my messages? Why aren't you, and it's like, really, honestly, like, this is my path and my healing, and I'm just being really open with it for everybody. But I am not trained to take on your trauma at all.
Right.
And I don't want it, But I do want people to seek help now that they're opening up. Now they can find a professional to help them.
Definitely.
Right. Well, and the community expands all the time, and we get folks like Becca that have the professional credentials and are able to try those things out in a professional setting, and I just think it's great to see.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well,
Definitely.
what else we got? What's going on in today's world? How about you, Miss Strange Duck? What projects are you working on these days? Anything fun?
You guys were talking about stacking, and I actually love stacking, not just with niacin. I definitely know Becca's onto something when you feel that niacin and you feel that little kick and that it's like a little Red Bull in you with the microdose. But I really love caffeine, and I also love binding it to like milk. I also add potassium, different things to make you feel differently. So my edible would never be the same. Like morning time, I'm going to have more of a boost. Afternoon, evening, everything's going to be different based on the food I incorporate it with. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you're R&D, and you need a scientific person to hold you accountable on all those things. Test all of those different methods and find out what works well for you. So there's your next degree, Becca. Statistics analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do. And I'm joining up with the King. I was going to stay away from any type of help, but I really need it right now to get my name out here. So I'll join and start just selling topicals in bulk and work my way up that way. I don't know if everybody's ready for the edible game right now in Washington. So I kind of took a step back from that, and I'm going to try the topicals and see if I can get a little bit further this next year with that.
Yeah, everybody seems to be comfortable with chocolate, but to me, chocolate's been done to death, and it's not very good, honestly.
Oh.
So I would rather see things like what you do.
Sugar's consistent. Chocolate, clumps. You're gonna get. I mean, unless you're gonna eat the whole chocolate bar all at once, I don't understand how they're microdosing this properly.
Right. Yeah, I don't either. What I've seen is people will grind it up and just mix it in, and you'll get chunks like peanuts, like, oh,
yeah,
here's that chocolate peanut. Oh, it tastes like cow shit. Yum.
I don't play that game. You can add to chocolate, but I'm always going to add sugar into the chocolate. I would never just powder mushrooms. It's always going to be an extraction.
Yeah, I agree. People want food that tastes like food.
And echinacea. And the echinacea, I just kind of wondered, I'm going to bind it to echinacea and see what happens. Because if we can create something that helps your immune system and microdoses you at the same time, I think that would be really incredible. But then you run into problems with people who drink caffeine. You're not really supposed to mix echinacea and a bunch of caffeine and stuff. So yeah, so that I'm just studying that right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people probably know that either. I wonder how many people are taking Airborne and going to Starbucks and feeling like shit.
Exactly. And it causes gastric issues. I mean, that's exactly what happens. They're like, why does my stomach hurt?
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming to a close here. We're reaching our 1 hour mark. So I want to just say thank you, Strange Duck, Amy, and Becca Jean. You're great to have on, and I really appreciate that you got me started, and that we're able to connect here and have a really good show. And as usual, Andrew, it's been a great day.
It's been nice, man.
All right. Well, anything you have to say, Strange Duck? Now's your chance, and we'll go around the room.
Yeah, thank you guys for this. This is actually helping us get out of our comfort zone too as well. It's really nice because it's usually just Becca and I doing this, so it's nice to have it on the other end now. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Now we're being interviewed. Hold on.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll call it a day. And I thank you again for being on the show. And I thank everyone for watching. And you folks have a nice day. Make sure you check us out each week. We'll have some exciting guests. Check us out Saturdays, released first thing in the morning at 12 a.m. You can watch us anytime thereafter.